Conversations with Ishiekwene.
Welcome to Deepening the Conversation, a segment of Conversation with Azu, a weekly diary on life and politics, published on Leadership newspaper. On today's segment of the show, we'll be talking about developments in Imo State in the run-up to the 2023 November 11 general elections, and the subject Mr. Azu had chosen to bring to us this time around. It is titled, "Are You in That Number Saved by Uzodimma?" Azu is in the studio with me, and on our discussion, I'll be putting some questions to him on why he has chosen Imo State this time around. You're welcome to the studio, Mr. Azu.
Thank you very much, Julius. It's nice to be back here again.
All right. You said you asked a question. Your headline is a question. And what magic number are you referring to?
All right, thank you. Again, the headline, I drew it from a song. It was a song that some folks used to sing back in the day when I was growing up about, "Are you in that number? Are you in that number? Are you in the..." And and it goes on, "Saved by blah blah," and of course it's but that's just by the way. That really was the inspiration. But of course, as I said in the piece, it was the immediate trigger for the article was the September 26th comments of the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, to young folks who had come to visit him at the government house. And he said 4,000 of them, he made certain specific comments about 4,000 of them and so forth and so on. So I then, sort of used that figure, that 4,000, as a lucky number actually. So if you're lucky to be among the 4,000, then that would be a great place to be. So that really was the inspiration for the 4,000.
Quite serious. 4,000. You promised what specifically?
They were promised as part of the Skill Up project. The program is supposed to produce 100,000 people who are skilled in different aspects of IT and ICT. That's what they say. But this 4,000 will be special. It's something special apart from the 100,000, because according to the governor, these 4,000 people are supposed to be people who, after they have trained, he said he had actually spoken with some Canadian and American firms that had agreed to take them on an apprenticeship after they had been trained. And he said, of course, that those 4,000 would be given tickets at the government expense to go to either Canada or anywhere in North America or Europe to work after they have completed their training.
Let me say, I found the article very hilarious and I laughed very well, both for the reality that that metaphor struck almost an opposite reaction in me. So this snake oil and
okay,
my feeling.
Yeah. Let me just dial back a bit. Sometime in November, I believe it was November 2020, the government had come up. The Governor Hope Uzodimma, had come up with an extraordinary empowerment program for young people. About 250 beneficiaries of what he called rabbit farming. So he had actually come up with this extraordinary idea to empower some 250 people with rabbits. And I don't know how well the rabbit farming is doing, and I don't know where any of those rabbits are now. But you can see that the governor has actually grown in terms of his ideas of how to empower it. From 250 beneficiaries of his rabbit empowerment program to potentially 4,000 or even more.
Let me tell you something. I have gone further to negotiate with the European Union companies and Canadian companies. They are sending us special areas of digital skill, which our youth will also learn. And by December this year, 4,000 Imo youths will be employed in Europe.
I don't know where that idea came from, that he had spoken with 4,000, that potentially 4,000 will benefit from these discussions with Canadian and European firms. And of course, some people had done the fact checking and said that they were not aware of anything like that happening. So he has some explaining to do. How on earth he came up with this, only he can tell, to be honest.
Snake oil, very red.
Yes, snake oil. Yeah, it's magical. I guess that that's the thing about snake oil. The magical quality of it, and that's probably in the realm of what we have been promised by the government. This can only be magical, too magical, in fact, to be true. But again, it's important to keep in mind that it is not only the Imo State government, Hope Uzodimma, that has to be called to account or has to be asked to explain some of these things more. As the off-cycle election for November 11 draws near, governors in the other potential contestants in the other and the other states in Bayelsa, in Kogi will also
and Edo next year,
and wherever elections are going, people have a responsibility, because you could see the frenzy. When he made that, the youths actually they were in raptures of ecstasy to hear this. But I thought that somebody somewhere should just pause and ask question: how is this going to be done, and at whose expense?
Yes, I was just going to ask, who is to blame in the circumstances? Are the youths too gullible, too uncritical minded, or are they falling for schemes that are obviously sound too pleasant but don't yield anything in terms of value?
It's hard to say, but I think that in the sort of desperate situation in which most people have found themselves, it's very easy to sell snake oil, actually. Snake oil merchandising is quite easy, and it's a very desperate situation in which young people have found themselves. The statistics say that about 53-54% of young people are unemployed. And if they hear anything that potentially appears to offer hope, they lay hold on it without stopping to think about whether it is true or not. But to answer your question directly, I think the media has a very important role to play. I think NGOs have important roles. I think communities also, because ultimately the governor of Imo State is not going to answer to me in Abuja or to anybody else. It's going to answer to those who will turn up on the 11th of November to vote. So they are primarily the people who ought to, people in the state, voters in the state, and different stakeholders have a responsibility to hold him, not just him, but the 3 or 4 other persons who are contesting. They have a responsibility to ask them tough questions and hold their feet to the fire.
If you look at the states around the southwest, almost, with the exception of
the southeast, you mean?
The southeast, with the exception of Ebonyi and to some extent Anambra, there's really nothing to hold on to. So, at what point do we bring back that social contract? How do we get back the social contract that politicians should be accountable to people for what they say and what they do?
I think, unfortunately, we are growing into a pattern that tends to suggest that it's only every 4 years that we have to try to hold elected officers to account. I do not think that it ought to be so. I think that the state houses of assembly or the legislature, if the 3 arms of government at all levels, if the 3 arms of government, we have the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive, if these 3 arms of government were functioning efficiently, then you would have more control, you have more checks and balances. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And it's worse in the states because local governments are also, apart from the state houses of assembly, the local governments are also in the pockets of the governors. And this is not about Imo State alone, it's in the southeast. It's an epidemic, it's a countrywide epidemic. But I think that what we have to insist on, the different stakeholders, the media, civil society, and local communities have to keep asking questions. There's just no other way, There's something that Obi Ezekisoli is fond of saying, that we have to, the demand side, until the demand side of politics improves significantly, then the supply is going to be what we get. It's just going to be the same magic oil, the same snake oil stuff. That's just going to happen over and over again until we improve the quality of demand on the system and not relent or wait until only elections. It's not only at the times of elections that we should ask questions. I think at every point down the road, the different institutions that are supposed to ask questions ought to be able to do so to whom people are elected to account.
All right, you heard that very well. Different institutions, civil society, non-governmental organizations, you and I need to continually ask questions as the process is in motion and not wait until the election cycle comes around. Conversation with Azu is regular, like I said earlier, regular feature on the back page of Leadership newspaper and Vanguard every Friday. You can visit our social media handles to get deeper and more incisive content, which there is no one does it better than Azu when it comes to column writing in Nigeria. So I promise you that if you go to the site Azu Ishiekwene, you will get richer and far better content than what we do here. Thank you for being with us. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Julius.
Conversations with Azu Ishiekwene.